Hunting for Answers is a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. Welcome to Hunting for Answers, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Hunter. Before sunrise, while most of San Antonio was still asleep, a shooting on the city's north side sets off an investigation that continues to raise questions 4 years later. As detectives begin trying to understand what happened, the case offers few immediate answers. Was this vehicle targeted? Who was responsible? And what led to the violence that morning? This is the story of Deanne Thomas and Kennedi Braziel. Deanne Imajanique Denise Thomas was 19 years old. Kennedi Eunice Braziel was 18. The two young women were close friends. To their families, they were more than names in a news report. They were daughters, loved ones, young women who should have had their entire lives ahead of them. Family members said Deanne had returned to San Antonio to finish school and receive her diploma. She hoped to join the Air Force. At 19, she was working toward the next chapter of her life while raising two young children. Both women had children who depended on them. Kennedi was raising her son. In the hours before the shooting, Deanne and Kennedi were spending time together. Family members said Deanne was celebrating her graduation with two friends. It was a milestone. As the night turned into morning, the celebration continued. From the outside, it appeared to be a celebration among friends. No obvious sign that the hours ahead would change multiple lives forever. By the early morning hours of June 12, 2022, Deanne, Kennedi, and a third young woman were together in a vehicle. Police said the women were traveling along the access road near Loop 410 and Blanco Road. Investigators would later say it had been reported that the women were low on fuel and were headed toward a convenience store. But before they reached the store, the journey came to an abrupt end. And within moments, what should have been an ordinary early morning drive would become a homicide investigation. Police said gunfire erupted. Shots ripped through the vehicle. Investigators would later recover more than 50 shell casings from the scene. Authorities said the evidence suggested multiple weapons had been used, including a 9mm firearm and what appeared to be an AK-style rifle. By the time the shooting ended, investigators would be left with a scene marked by dozens of shell casings, multiple weapons, and no immediate indication of who was responsible. When the shooting stopped, the damage was devastating. Deanne and Kennedi did not survive their injuries. The third woman was transported to a hospital in critical condition. By daybreak, two young women had lost their lives. A third was fighting to survive. And investigators were left trying to determine who had opened fire on the vehicle and why. One of the first questions investigators faced was whether the women had been specifically targeted. More than 50 shell casings had been recovered from the scene. For investigators, that fact raised questions. But early in the investigation, authorities had not identified a motive. They had not publicly identified the shooters, and they had not determined whether the victims had any connection to the people responsible. Investigators turned their attention to the area surrounding the shooting. The location sat near businesses and traffic. Detectives canvassed the area as they worked to reconstruct the events of that morning. Investigators also sought surveillance video from nearby businesses. But despite those efforts, no public breakthrough was announced. And for the families, the wait for answers continues. As news of the shooting spread, families found themselves facing an unimaginable loss. Deanne's mother, Valerie Thomas, spoke publicly about her daughter. She described a young woman who loved her children, who had recently graduated, and was looking ahead to what came next. At one point, she told reporters that her worst nightmare had become reality. Deanne's death left behind 2 young children and a family forced to grapple with the loss of a daughter who still had her life ahead of her. For Kennedy's family, the loss was just as devastating. Her mother, Kennedi Braziel, spoke about the difficulty of even imagining attending her daughter's funeral. She told reporters, "I don't even know if I can go to my baby's funeral. I brought her into this world. I don't know about seeing her out." At one point, Crystal recalled her final goodbye. "I told her I loved her and that I would take care of her son," her mother said. One of the key details in this case is that there was a survivor. Years later, public reporting provides few details about what she saw, or whether the information she provided helped investigators move closer to identifying those responsible. 4 years later, no arrests have been publicly announced, no motive has been publicly identified, and no public explanation has been provided for why these women were attacked. Our thoughts are with the families, friends, and loved ones of Deanne Thomas and Kennedi Braziel. As we close this episode, sharing their story helps keep attention on a case that remains unsolved. Anyone with information about this case should contact the Castle Hills Police Department. Contact details are listed in the show notes. For more cases and updates, follow Hunting for Answers. You can also connect with us through our Facebook group and find us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And as always, if there's a story you believe deserves attention, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us for another episode. Until next time. Hunting for Answers is a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network. For more podcasts from the Black Effect Podcast Network, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.